We're live.
All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Inside Movies Galore. I am your host, and sad but true, this is my last film to subject my fellow film buddies here to a film, but it I saved a goodie for last, I think. This is a film based, a 1970 film based on a 1961 novel by Norman Juster. And we have an interesting cast behind this. It's directed by Chuck Jones over at MGM Animated Studios. And it's co-directed with Abe Levitow. And Dave Monahan directed the live-action segments of this feature. One thing I want to say before I go into what IMDb says about this film is that this film was originally completed in 1968, but the film was held up from release by MGM until late 1970 due to some internal studio problems. And Juster himself had no input into the adaptation and has expressed his hatred for the film in an interview. It was a film I never liked. I don't think they did a good job on it. It's been around for a long time. It was well reviewed, which also made me angry. So,
come on,
said,
guy. It was fine.
Milo, this is what IMDb says. Milo is a boy who is bored with life. One day he comes home to find a toll booth in his room. Having nothing better to do, he gets in his toy car and drives through, only to emerge in a world full of adventure. One thing I want to say is that this film is also known as The Adventures of Milo and the Phantom Tollbooth. But let's go into first impressions of the film. Let's start with you, Dustin. Was this a first time watch for you?
Well, of course, this is the first time I've seen it. As somebody clicks a pen in the background, probably Kroll, who's unmuted.
No, it's not me, asshole, but thanks.
All
Okay, now my train of thought is back. So this is the first time I've seen this, and I feel like you played a trick on us with your picks this time for this month, because you started us off with that terrifying, like, sexually assaulting rabbit film, and then the rest of your movies have been really good, and it's like you're messing with us. I think.
See,
I
that
don't
is
know.
all a matter of opinion. And
Yeah.
I guess the thing is, you have to remember all of the movies that I probably will choose are for shits and giggles. So you can't go in always expecting to hate a film. But
I didn't expect to hate it. I read the synopsis and I was like, oh, this sounds really interesting. And it felt a little bit like Schoolhouse Rock. It was like, okay,
Yes.
I feel like I'm being educated, or like talked down to a little bit, but it was actually kind of good. Like I was surprised. It's like it felt a little dated in terms of like what would entertain a child. Like it felt like of the period very much, but it was good. I was kind of impressed, honestly.
I will say one thing before I go into other first impressions is that Butch Patrick is the kid. He's more well known for being Eddie Munster from the Munsters. So
True enough. It's also important to note that he grew up to have quite the penchant for awesome mullets and retro baseball caps, which I found to be quite enjoyable when I was looking at pictures of him as an older man. I hope if he's still alive, he still has the mullet and a lot of those caps because they were solid.
And did you have anything more to add to your first impression, Dustin?
This is Chuck Jones, and Chuck Jones is like an animation legend, so the animation was really solid. There weren't, for some reason, I expected like a lot of like weird music, and it didn't really beat you over the head with it, so that was kind of a pleasant surprise. I really had no idea what to expect, other than like just from the synopsis that I saw, and I was very happy with this. So I didn't get bored or anything, or yeah, it was good.
Okay. Going over to Tammy. Was this a first time watch for you?
No, you had showed it to me before, so but I, the first time I watched it, I really liked it, and I did again this time too. And I thought that it was, the animation was really well, and everything, and I liked that it did seem to like tell a story that were for like a child to learn things, that it wasn't just the kid with the cartoons, that there was behind it, there was for him to learn things, it was like educational but fun.
Mm-hmm.
So but yeah, I liked it.
Okay.
Edutainment, they used to call it.
Heading over to you, Kroll. Was this a first time watch for you?
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed it. Did feel a lot like some shows I watched as a kid that help teach you lessons and stuff. But it was interesting. I thought it was gonna be more like you said, Roger Rabbit, where it was like action and animated, not a little bit of action and the rest animated. So it was a little bit what I wasn't expecting, but it was enjoyable. It was cute. Definitely had some funny parts and some interesting characters in it. It was enjoyable.
I feel like the live action wraparound stuff was more of a common way of doing it in this time period, because it was harder. You couldn't really just blend. You couldn't do some Cool World or Roger Rabbit shit back in these days in the same way, So the compromise was to have those little snippets of live action stuff, and that's fine, I suppose.
Though it's still cool in the way they executed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did have the one scene where he was like action cartoon when he kept bouncing back and forth.
I bet you
Right.
you dropped a bunch of acid and watched this in 1970, it would have been a lot closer to Cool World.
Yeah, it did go on a little long.
It's a bit long-winded, yeah. I feel like you're on the money there. I'd tend to
That scene, I mean, not the movie. The movie was paced fine. It's just that scene felt a little okay. We get it after like the 8th gag,
Yeah.
Well, again, kids, I think maybe kids back then were dumber. I don't know. I like to feel like we all would have gotten it as kids too, but
to be
the
honest,
mentality of how kids could process information back then was a little different than it is now. So they tended to get repetitive with certain jokes or things like that.
To be honest, I don't think that there were that many films that involve both live action and animation at this moment, and using them that way, even though we had Song of the South way before for this. I don't remember anything in between.
I feel like
this was 5 years after Mary Poppins, if I remember correctly.
I mean, is it do they have the resources that Disney has to pull something
and
like that off back
wasn't
then?
This just when did Pete's Dragon come? Was that 77, 78?
Yeah.
I forget. That's the
Yeah.
thing that immediately came to mind when we started talking about this. Too.
And this was Warner Brothers that came out with this, so I mean, keep in mind they had every bit as much resources.
Well, actually, it was
technically
MGM. Technically, MGM.
The first and only for
it's just
MGM,
Warner Brothers ended up with it in their archive collection because they bought out MGM stock.
But even then, MGM also had quite a bit of resources back in those days as well.
Yeah, a lot, but not Disney level shit, bro. And I mean,
no,
I think Disney at that point probably employed all of the people that could do stuff like that, you know, because it was still new technology for the most part. I feel like Pete's Dragon, isn't it almost all live action, and it's just the dragon that's animated? So that's
mostly,
yeah. I feel like that could be pulled off a lot easier than something like Mary Poppins, where there's like elaborate dance sequences inside of an animated world type thing. You know?
Right.
And keep in mind, Disney was hitting a slump in the 70s, so you know it was.
Yeah.
It's Disney had a number of slumps. I think this was the start of the first slump, and then they hit their golden age in the early 90s. And then they got slumped again after that. So, you know, it's just how Disney likes to operate.
It comes and goes.
But in any case, Crow, was your first impression finished?
Yeah.
Okay. Then moving on to Jake. Why don't you tell us, was this a first-time watch for you?
Well, first of all, speaking of slumps and going back to Mo's idea of Butch Patrick's appreciation for mullets and
I love you, Joe.
one of his, you notice one of his credits is that lovely piece of whatever it was starring David Spade called Dickie Roberts' Former Child Star.
Oh, I love you less, Jake. Why? What'd you do there?
Anyway,
obviously his greatest credit. Yeah.
Some of his credits sound sort of desperate, honestly.
Actually, that one was moderately amusing for a terrible film, which it was a terrible film. But
I enjoyed it.
Probably not wrong. I might need to reappraise that.
So anyway, this one, it definitely was a first-time watch for me. The book is definitely known to me. It's been on my to-read list. I feel like I wanted to make time to read it to prepare for this, but I just really didn't have the time to randomly read another book. And, I kind of wanted, that was one of the weird themes you had, Dave, this month. Other than that first thing that we watched, the movies were all based on novels, and it would have been kind of interesting to read any one of those for comparative value, but I just didn't get around to it. The movie itself, I think I was vaguely aware there was a movie for this book, but I had never seen it. It was not. It really was not a part of my childhood. Certainly, some of the people involved, Chuck Jones and Mel Blanc and some of them.
My mom was randomly good at finding some weird shit to put on VHS just to keep us kids happy. So,
well, better to grow up on movies like this one and Charlie rather than bunny thing.
I grew up on Scamper the Penguin and Predator 2. So.
I love Scamper. That was great.
But wait a minute.
Although that with Predator.
Were we supposed to read a book, Dave? What were you assigning us?
What's up?
It sounded like Dave.
We weren't supposed to read the book, but I will say that the book is better and goes into explanations of the different worlds that Milo meets, and it goes into a better explanation about why he was so bored instead of getting that mumbo jumbo stuff in the very beginning, all that stuff in his head and stuff. Well, it went into more detail in the book about how bored he was in life.
Okay. I don't know that they really needed more of that in the movie because it was like, I think it was already very clear that he was bored. And honestly, he was kind of hard to get behind at first, but once the movie gets underway, it was pretty fun. I did enjoy for the most part, I enjoyed the animation. The live action scenes did absolutely scream 70s, but I think overall it was, and the animation kind of did too, but I think overall it was a fun movie and kind of an interesting way to close out this particular assortment.
Okay. Is that it on your first impression then?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Heading over to Mo here. Was this the first time watch for you?
I can't swear to it, man. Whereas with Charlie, I knew that I'd seen it at some point. This is one where it's like, it's up in the air. Okay, maybe they showed it to us. I know that we read the book in school and there was elements of this that seemed vaguely familiar, but I also can't swear that that's not because of the other stuff that it's similar to. Because it definitely does have like a Schoolhouse Rock meets a Ralph Bakshi cartoon meets like, I don't know, vaguely Disney, like, something like that, like some real safe cartoony fucking, Beaver Cleaver shit. It's fine. I liked it. I probably smoked more weed than I needed to before watching it based on the cover art because I was like, oh shit, we're going like that, eh? Like I saw it and it was kind of psychedelic and whimsical and weird. So, but I guess it was like kind of a learning thing, like Tammy pointed out, and I'll give it to her. It seems like, it's educational while still being fun, which is the key to making any educational stuff the type of shit kids will actually sit through. It's got its dated elements, but overall it still looks pretty good. I think that they did a good job on the animation, like everyone's kind of pointed out. And I do think it is a good closer for your month because it kind of, honestly, I think Bunny's out of place just because I feel like you got scared, Dave. I feel like that's what happened. Like you had filthier shit in mind, but because y'all are soft, Dave changed the whole lineup to be like shit they might have shown us.
Well,
and that's fine.
In the group.
I mean, it's whatever. I doubt all your movies would have been.
Hey, I enjoyed Bunny and Killer Thing, so. About.
Yeah, it's a fine movie if you're not taking it too seriously. But I think that this was a good way to round out your literature lineup that you've had for us here. Unfortunately, didn't catch the last one, but this and Charlie, I really did enjoy checking out. So certainly something I would probably show to my kid. But as people pointed out, it's a little dated in sort of the educational keeping their attention department. So this is the type of thing my kid probably wouldn't like. But if it was like 5 years ago, I probably would have showed it to her and it'd have been a big hit, I bet.
Okay. Are you finished with your first impression?
Yeah, other than that, next time you shouldn't be a coward, Dave. You should fucking get filthy with it all month long. So at the 10-year anniversary of this, I expect some debaucherous shit out of you, my boy.
I've shown the debauchery. We started off with some crappy films, so.
Oh, trust me, we're gonna go right back to the debauchery and
you guys anniversary. Serbian film. I can handle that stuff. It's just like I have standards.
We don't.
That's your problem. But anyways, going over to Brandon here. Was this a first time watch for you?
Not to interrupt, but I still haven't worked up the courage to see that movie yet, Dustin. So kudos to all you guys that actually did it.
It was actually kind of hilarious, to be honest. Like it
sounds like the type of thing that would be when it's all said and done. Like it's so ridiculous, but yeah. One day.
It was trying so hard to shock you that it just crossed into parody for me.
Well, as far as my first impressions, of course, Jake, I don't know what you're talking about. That old literary classic, Bunny the Killer Thing, written by Herbert Melville. I mean, you don't know that one?
Yeah, it's right up there with fucking movie.
But
I would prefer not to.
But no, this is one that I'm familiar with. I'm one of the few here. There's a couple of us who actually did read it in elementary school, and
Yeah.
it really did stick with me. I really like. It's kind of weird uh, how my mind works, though. I have a hard time with written language a lot of times. I also really like spoken language, and reading some of the stuff aloud, I just like the cleverness of it. And I was shown the movie the first time as a supplement to it afterwards, and we did a compare and contrast session. And again, this was about fourth grade. I would still recommend the book to most children, I think, because the book really still the book has aged better than the movie, because the movie had a lot of that late 60s, early 70s feel to it, whereas the book, it didn't really have that feel to it. It felt good, like a standard fantasy
yeah.
book that
It's
had
words
a
on a
learning
page.
component
You
to
know, you don't have the visual sort of auditory element behind it to make it dated, right? Like every time I read My Side of the Mountain, I forget that it's supposed to probably take place in the 50s or something. I always look at it as just Sam bailing out on modern society because it's so easy to, read into it however you like with text.
And that's one of the good things about it. It's a very good fantasy tale. And go ahead.
I was gonna ask you now. The Bunny and Killer thing, the book, right? I heard there's like 100. He says pussy like 100 times in the book, right?
What?
At least, yeah.
At least.
Part of the reason they stopped stocking it in schools, dude. Shame.
In fact, the sequel is the panty raid edition. So,
but I did really like the. I did really I understood why. I like both, but I do understand why the author had issues, because they did take a few choices and a little bit of leeway with it that I could see him taking some issue with. And I'll go over that more as we go. I do prefer the book to the movie. The book is just a great book. If you haven't checked it out and you do like anything that talks about wordplay or literature, it's a fun little read.
I do have good memories of reading it as a kid, like, and the artwork that's on the front of that edition you shared is very familiar to me. I don't know who that artist is that does that, but they did several children's books back in the day, and it's that kind of children's artwork that looks like it may have been done by a crazy person, and that just makes it intriguing, I guess. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not only did I read the book when I was a kid, I carried it around with my other 40 books that I would normally carry in like my army knapsack while I was in grade school and high school and all that jazz. And I didn't. And I have to say, I enjoy the story. I enjoy the movie a lot more. Maybe it's a little bit more nostalgia. But I enjoy the story because honestly, there were a lot of kids around me at that time during grade school and high school that always seemed so bored with life, and they didn't seem to care about why they needed to learn these things and things of that nature. And this was a great story to tell if one were to be told. Maybe it wasn't the author's necessary choice, but I enjoyed it for what it is. There are some dated animation scenes like the doldrums. I think that scene could have been maybe done just a little bit better, but I also feel like this whole film would definitely it wouldn't be a bad thing to go back and remaster it and maybe see if they can't clean it up a little bit more than it is on the Warner Brother Archives collection version, which is pretty cleaned up since the first time I had it was on a bootleg.
I'd be fine with them doing that. I think it's probably due for a remake too. You know,
Actually,
like
there
an
has been a
updated
remake.
version of this.
There has been a
There's a
remake
miniseries.
planned. It's just as far as 2018, changed directors, and it's just kind of like still in screenplay hell right now. So
Right. I feel like if they did it right, this could be one of those live action Disney movies that could be quite a hit. You could even strip the educational stuff out of there because that shit doesn't really
yeah,
work.
let's just hope it's
and
not
just
the
make it
Wrinkle in Time remake like
fantasy film.
the.
Depending on who owns it, like with the Chuck Jones, if Warner owns the rights, I could see them going with this. It would be, I think it could be pretty cool. I mean, and as far as inclusivity and stuff like that, I think they could take a lot of good shots with that too, especially when you're doing fantasy. So it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think expecting these things to ever be like as good as the book most of the time or accurate to the book is just an exercise in futility. I think we all know that deep down inside. I mean, it's just the way that it works.
Books are always better.
I think that a miniseries would
not always
really
most
hit
of the
it.
time.
I mean, I do think a miniseries would hit this better than the movie did, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, like a Disney Plus thing or something. I could see, well, maybe not Disney Plus because it isn't Disney, but you know what I mean.
It might
some
be
type
possible.
of limited streaming series could be rad for something like this.
Netflix.
Shoot, HBO.
There you go. Yeah, somebody that's not going to cancel it. That's well, if it's just a mini series, it doesn't matter anyways. But
I could see it as maybe a 3-episode thing or something like that. Maybe.
Oh, you could make 8 episodes out
I
of this
don't
easy.
think 8 episodes out of this.
You include the stuff like the Valley of Sound and
that'd be the Peter Jackson cut.
I was just gonna say, in a way, I wish this would have been around, or I wish I would have known about it as a kid, because I actually was very bored with school because it just bored me. I knew
it was boring.
Yeah, because every time they gave me something new, I figured it out like right away. So I was like, okay, that was fun. What else you got?
I was like, I didn't bother doing. I never did my homework because I'm like, it's just fucking boring. It's like I'm out of school. I don't want to deal with that shit until the next day.
Well, yeah. And any job I've ever been in, where have I ever needed anything other than addition and subtraction?
Well, I was so bored.
There's other things that help for
English
sure,
is helpful.
But
I usually had all my homework done before I even left school because I get so bored in class.
Yeah, so I would do the schoolwork when I was like in free periods. So unfortunately, in public school curriculums in the modern fucking world, when you weren't dipping quills and shit, it's pretty much up to you to challenge yourself. When I was in school, I had the same issue, but I managed to weasel my way into getting put into the 4 core classes that I needed, which was like English, math, fucking social studies, and whatever else. I forget what the 4th one was now. Some bullshit.
I tried that. I tried going
and like one elective.
classes.
So I got to get out of school super early because I was taking the like next grades classes for those 4 main things and then an elective. So I could go home at like 12 o'clock, bro. And I would just go home and watch 2 episodes of Dawson's Creek and like smoke weed and then come back to school and just be getting good grades. I got good grades in school. I just quit early because I got a job, but.
Well, I graduated a half a year early with everything.
I probably would have been on track to doing something like that if I had been more serious about it and less of a slacker in those later years. But definitely schools, they don't do enough to like keep kids interested in school nowadays.
Yeah.
So.
Nope, they just give them an iPad and say, okay, here, do your homework.
You can blame that if you want, but it was the same in my day, man. I mean, I spent most of my fucking time in like actual school putting, Doom on the computers in the library.
Shoot,
well,
we study for tests constantly, so I don't know.
So, that's a good example though of like games like you know, I still remember very fondly, and I think it was like 4th, 5th grade, probably 6th grade ish, where it was like we would look forward to the days that we could go to the computers to play Oregon Trail. I mean, that was just
Oh,
great. But
Dude,
it's
I
like,
on a white
yeah.
screen computer.
Did
Well,
you
you
guys
had
have
to
that
find-
word processing game with the gnome where if you got the word processing right, it would like lead this gnome through this mystical forest?
Nah,
I
I
don't
don't
play
think
that
so.
It was
I know-
sick, bro.
I really enjoyed
Oregon
Where in
Trail
the
was the
World
big
is
one.
Carmen San Diego.
Oh yeah, I
That
love
one-
that
that
one
was-
too.
One,
It
yeah.
taught, it
I
Yeah,
don't
taught
yeah,
me-
of
remember.
course.
I
it
don't
taught
remember
me
if
a
I did
lot
that.
about the
I don't
world.
remember if we did that at school though.
Did you ever
I
do
would've-
number munchers?
Oh,
No.
dude, or like
No.
what's it, Math Blaster? All those
Oh, you
things
see-
were dope.
Well,
With
point
me-
being though, the point being though that doing creative things like that helps. Like I have never liked math.
definitely.
I've always been bored. I would be bored to tears of math
I hated math.
and some of my worst classes. But the one year that math did not bother me at all. We had a schedule where we would have our everyday class, and it was shorter than the other classes. Like instead of being an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever the hell they were, it was just an hour class or just under an hour. And it was every day, which sucked, but it was short. And that was my trigonometry class. And basically the teacher would teach for about 45 minutes and then give us about 15 minutes to do whatever the hell we wanted. And, you know, we would play music, we would sit and chat, and sometimes we'd put on a movie or something for, 15 minutes. But you know what I mean? Like we could watch a little piece of something. But that was the idea. Like he wasn't trying to cram everything in the way some teachers would just cram.
Yeah, if they're just gonna
that's
textbook
like-
your ass the whole
Math,
time,
Yeah.
math I
it
loved.
doesn't
It
really
was
do
science
anything
and
for
social
Yeah.
studies I couldn't stand.
I hated math and I hated American history.
Yeah. I was
I
all
loved
I,
math.
I couldn't
I-
stand English class. I couldn't do.
Oh, I
the,
love English.
I
was my
loved all of
favorite.
it, dude. It's just
Yeah.
it was like
English was my
Tammy
favorite.
said, it was
English
too
was
easy
cool.
to blast through like
Yeah.
the
I loved
basic
reading
shit,
and
I
writing
guess. I
and-
don't know.
Well, and
You know,
also
I,
It
the
really
thing that
depends on what. Sorry, it really depends on what you're doing too with like
Yeah.
the maths. I mean, it's easy
Yeah.
to say like, oh, when have I ever used that outside of there? But it really depends on because trig is the one where you figure out the area of things and shit. Yeah, Or am I
more or less,
confused?
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I use that stuff all the time. You can really maximize that in your movie collecting too if you know how to take a couple of minutes
Right.
and do some quick math.
See, trig was
Uh,
long form formulas that you memorized, and same with calculus. It was all about long form that you memorized, whereas geometry
I
was more
hated
about
calculus.
finding the stuff.
That's what
because-
I'm getting at.
Yeah, because to me, anything before trig, it was easy, but after trig, it was because you had to memorize. There was no formulaics. There was no logic. You memorized formulas. This plus this equals that. And
Yeah,
you had to
calculus
just do
friggin'
that.
sucked.
Which that
Actually,
you
I
still
never
do
even-
use if you build stuff too. Like, I mean, it's
Yeah.
definitely trig is something that factors into that. But yeah, it's not the easier thing to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
But we kind of sabotaged Dave's first impression. Let's see.
Oh, I was just gonna say it was kind of the opposite for me. Like I didn't really feel this kind of like boredom that our main character describes until I was almost done with grad school, where I was really feeling it during COVID, where I kind of had too much freedom, and it was.
I
like,
find more often than not, and that's understandable. I find more often than not the kids that feel like that at a young age are usually the kids whose parents are kind of assholes sometimes. So. Like they've had that wonderment of being a kid sort of sapped out of them earlier than they should, and it's like, I mean, there's a difference between being bored with school and being like that perpetually bored little kid. I see that all the time with like, adjacent family members' kids. And it's like, well, that's because your parents aren't doing shit with you like that. I didn't have that, as a kid. It was like, I had people stimulating me to want to learn new things and shit like that. So we all can't be that lucky though.
I always did it on my own, so it was kind of
Yeah, you were self-sufficient then. You had that wonderment built into you. It's like you just want to learn more stuff, you know. I don't know. I was never a bored kid either. I was like, I've got a Nintendo. If I'm bored, I'm just gonna fuck off out of here and play video games and
I got
myself,
bored with
you know?
school at high school. I wasn't bored with life. I was just bored with school.
I got bored with
yeah.
it too. That's when I stopped going after a while.
yeah. I mean,
I guess part of the reason
I quit, and then I decided, you know, all right, I'll go back, and ended up quitting again because of just their policies just didn't work with my schedule. You know, I was still not a morning person. That's mostly why I skipped school, because I just wanted to go back to sleep.
Fucking lazy bastard.
I guess the reason maybe I got bored is
What's that, Tammy?
I guess part of the reason I got bored is I didn't like being at home. I want to be at home, so I put everything I had into my schoolwork, and then, you know, I could only go so far. And it was like, well, okay, give me something else. You know, I already mastered this. You know,
So she wanted more in her curriculum. She wanted to learn more.
And that's fair.
well, that's because I didn't want to be at home. I wanted to be anywhere but home.
See, I loved being at home. My parents were awesome, but I was a fucking nerd, and so after a while, but I wanted to be home to do it. So that's how I orchestrated the whole. Let me out of here at 12 o'clock. Okay, I'll take these harder classes, and you can let me go home at 12, and I can watch Dawson's Creek and like play. I think it was GameCube at the time. Yeah, so
But
it worked out, man. It was a good time.
Anyways,
Well, I didn't have gaming systems or anything like that growing up, so
You didn't?
nope, none of that stuff.
Probably why you didn't like being at home.
No kidding. I got an Atari. My mother got me an Atari when I was 12. So
Well, till I was 12, yeah, I really didn't like being at home. After I was 12, some things changed because I wasn't at home anymore.
I loved being outside playing and stuff. It was tough because we moved a lot. So going outside playing, I'd have to find new friends. You know?
well,
But in my grandparents, I had a friend there, and you know, they were in a house, so they didn't move, and then all of a sudden they sold it. I was like, this isn't happening.
Well, that's where I had my fun. I would go to my great grandparents. When I went to my great grandparents, that's when I had fun. That's when I had friends, and that's when I had video games to play. But at
I didn't
home,
have video games then, but
I didn't have anything.
I had friends that collected Star Wars toys like I did, and played Star Wars and stuff. And
Were they little latchkey kids running around the neighborhood too?
Yeah, the time with my
no. People
the
didn't
time
really
growing up with my mom was not any fun. So
people didn't lock the doors that much in some of the neighborhoods. I mean,
No, I know.
depending on where in Brocken, but yeah, some of the neighborhoods they didn't even lock the doors that much. So it wasn't a latchkey kids then, really.
They're just kids, yeah.
but on that note, I liked this overall because, you know, it seemed to want to teach, you know, someone who was bored with like everything, how to, you know, overcome that and really learn why there is a reason for everything. So
But there's no
let's
rhyme
look at
moving.
Milo as a character. What do y'all think about him?
I found it was weird that he was kind of similar but different in the book and the movie. The Milo in the book was more mild mannered, and it felt like he was more almost depressed than really kind of ADHD bored. Whereas the Milo in this, he felt like he was ADHD bored, and he was a lot harder for me to like early on because he kind of felt like that kid was more of a nihilist of disliking things than I'm disliking it because of it's just hard to do it. It's more like I want to do something and almost came across as spoiled a lot of the times. He redeemed himself later, but really it wasn't until after the orchestra scene that I started to like him more. And it wasn't the orchestra scene, it was after the orchestra scene.
What Brandon's trying to say in a very nice way is that the kid's a little shit at first. You know?
Yeah. But he's not like that in the book.
Yeah.
He isn't like that at all in the book. He's a good kid in the book. He just has lack of motivation. Like I say, he comes across.
I think
more
they
as
like to
depressed.
show the contrast between, you know, how he was and then, you know, after he learned this is how he is now, likable. I think that's why they changed it. I never read the book, but from what you guys described,
I mean, I
it
could
sounds
even
like why
see
they
the
did that.
I could even see the author having an issue with it, because a lot of it being, you know, this isn't about like trying to deal with misfit kids. This is a book about, you know, trying to deal with these kids who might feel lost or depressed or alone.
Yeah,
And
it's a little more serious of an endeavor than they play at it being with
Yeah.
that kind of a portrayal of it, you know.
But that's just my take.
Well, and I think that speaks to, again, something we mentioned a couple of times tonight, like with, you know, how they sort of, back in the day, for a long time, that's what made Mr. Rogers so revolutionary, is he didn't talk to kids like they were idiots, you know. I
Yeah.
think, you know,
Yeah,
a
he
lot of
dealt
these
straight
people,
with them.
yeah, a lot of these people making these sort of movies for a long time felt like the kids had to be obnoxious because they were using like that one fucking kid at the old country buffet that they saw putting his fists in the macaroni as the example of what all kids are like, or some shit, you know. So they're all stupid, and you got to reiterate the point to them a million times, and they can only relate to these obnoxious little brat children. And that's why, I mean, you know, it's a thing in horror. Most people hate kids in horror movies because they're mostly always those annoying little brat children, and I don't understand why people think that's what kids are, as by and large. I mean, yeah, lots of them are like that, and every kid is like that sometimes, but that's not a rule.
I think the book version reminded me more of like a Christopher Robin type from Winnie the Pooh, except who never really found his friends or his voice.
I feel that. Yeah, I'd agree.
I can get behind that a little bit. A bit. As far as this movie goes, I do get that whole nihilistic viewpoint, I guess, a little bit, because he just doesn't seem to have any empathy, you know, any emotion in anything. And I think we got a little bit more emotion in the book, you know, behind the character. But let us go into the plot a little bit. So we have Milo, who is obviously he. In this very beginning sequence, we see him sitting in school, and he's just got all this barrage of thoughts, like beating at him, seriously. You can see that it's bogging his mind down, and he goes home and he talks to his friend Ralph, and he's just so totally bored, and it really does set up like what's going to happen next, because he says he just wishes something would happen, and something does, you know. All of a sudden he hears a thump in the background, and there's just this box, you know, this red box that he goes over, and a voice starts to speak to him. What do we think about this live action sequence leading up to when the Tollbooth actually arrives?
I did want to mention my thoughts on the kid too. Pretty much agree that he was kind of a shithead. Just really didn't care or anything, and then he later on in the movie he became more likable. I did enjoy the scene when he was popping in and out because he was so shocked that he was animated and then not animated. But yeah, he was kind of a little shithead. I know a lot of the kids that were like that.
Here's a good question. What would you do if you were suddenly animated?
Huh.
Well, if it was like that, where it's like animated and then not, like if I could move in between, I'd probably be doing that a lot as well. Because like, what the fuck? I mean, I understand the zapping. Why the hell is this zapping? It's more the why I would be doing it. More is just like what the fuck.
I think immediately I would
kind
look
of
down
a
my
mind
pants
blow.
to see if they censored me like a Ken doll, and then I would try to fly. The two things that would be foremost in my brain. If I was
You'd have to. I probably would have to
I want to change
test.
my answer to that.
I probably would have to test the walking off a short ledge to see if gravity works.
We'd probably see
Well,
it'll,
you could be
Jumping
like
around and
the
seeing if
wild
my legs
coyote.
look good and everything.
Right.
Now that I'm animated,
we'd probably see Ken Doll Mo on the reboot of Robot Chicken.
If they censor me like
that's
a
for
Ken
sure.
doll, I'm refusing to wear pants for the entirety of the time that I'm animated. You're gonna look at it, you son of a bitch.
Look at it. There's nothing
You see what
there.
they did to you, boy?
There's nothing.
It's like
there.
like that scene in Dog Mom, and is anatomically correct as a candle.
Exactly.
But in any case, I do like how the Tollbooth is in fact put together because it's put together in like a sequence of quick scenery,
it was cool.
quick change scenery, and so is the car.
I think the car was cooler.
It's not just a car that was like inside the room. It actually was built from the ground up around him, in some quick change scenery,
Kind of a stop motion style.
Yeah.
And it is very different from the book where he had the electric car at the beginning. And he built the Tollbooth IKEA style.
I thought that in the novel that the car actually came and
no, he had it with he had it with him there. It even mentions it when it describes his room, like his electric car, and that he had with him, and several of his other toys. So yeah, he had that electric car.
Okay, so
that was one of the big differences.
He was kind of a spoiled child in the novel as well.
That was part of the thing, also, in that as I showed, he had all this stuff.
Let's not assume his in economic status just because he has a car.
Yeah, he had all this stuff around him. But
in the 70s, if he has an electric car in the 70s, yes, he's spoiled.
Exactly.
But, that's the idea, is that he has all these things. He has all of this around him, yet he can't find happiness in any of it. He can't find interest in
what do you give the person that has everything? It's an age-old question. Kind of a thing. So apparently you just rip off from Doctor Who. That's what you do.
I told Booth to turn you into an animated character.
A Tollbooth that takes you to another world.
Yeah. Are we not going to point out the Doctor Who connection? Because this definitely came out after Doctor Who.
Well, and you also have to look at this.
I feel like it's an element in there.
I feel like
a phone booth.
Dr. Seuss.
Yep.
There's a little Dr. Seussery in there too.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, for sure.
I remember another film that was very colorful at the time that also had a little kid called the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T. That kind of.
Why does he need so many fingers to deal with these kids?
That's the prequel to Dr. T and the Women.
Wow.
Yeah.
But actually, Jake, this is an isekai. It even started as a light novel.
It is, yeah.
It is an isekai,
There you go.
It is.
While thinking about you guys as I was watching it, I was like,
because
really
when they said light novel had to
technical,
be a prerequisite, there you go. This is a light novel.
Well, in any case, you have this moment where he's just kind of like pushing the car back and forth inside the Tollbooth, and even the voice was like, "Well, going or staying," and so eventually he continued. I did like how there was a map that appeared, and there was a travel guide, and how the tokens just popped out of the car, and the tokens looked like something that you would like have to put inside like your local Funland.
Like a Chuck E. Cheese or something.
Well, he still
Yeah,
acts
something
like
like
he's
that.
gonna be bored because when the guy is telling him, "Are you coming or going? Are you coming?" He goes, "Oh, I guess I'm going." You know?
Yeah.
Question.
See, he was going full Napoleon Dynamite there, and it kind of got annoying very quickly.
This kid's not
Thank
even cool
you.
enough to be
I'm
packing
not the
pocket
only one that
dots,
hated
so he
that.
doesn't fucking, have a leg to stand on with the shit. I mean, bring the
But-
taters, bro, if you're gonna be a little bitch.
I do like the little dial that it does have, going, not going, all of that on it.
Well, in any case, he goes into the time tunnel that basically brings him to this like Looney Tunes-esque landscape where he's just on this like road, and he ends up. I think the first character he ends up meeting is that stereotypical cop that.
Guilty.
Officer Short Shrift.
Officer
I like the
Short Shrift.
name.
What did we think about that character?
He's like a Yosemite Sam almost character.
I think there was another character in the movie that might even use Sam more. But we'll get to that after.
And I actually do like the idea of them introducing him first and then and moving. I mean, just like him saying he wants to go to the castle in the sky first. In a way, I kind of like that design choice because in the book he was going to go to Dictionopolis first.
Yep.
And he didn't run into the officer until after the incident at Dictionopolis. So it's kind of I kind of liked introducing the officer early. I thought it was a fairly cool thing to do that interaction early on.
I like how they bring him back into it again later, which is probably when they introduced him in the book, like you said. So I mean, I think that was kind of cool. And then I love at the end where he's finally saying innocent, innocent to proven guilty, innocent isn't. Finally changed his tune.
Well, and I love how he just writes him up for talking back to an officer and things of that nature.
You want a long sentence or a short sentence? Oh, a short one. I am the short sentence I can think of.
I wanted to actually.
Now, when are you going? When are you going to carry it out?
Well, I gotta go to the castle in the sky first.
I did like how they pointed. I mean, this was where you first get an idea as to how the logic of the world works in this conversation. I love that. Like, where were you on January 27th? I don't know. What's the
July?
It was my birthday. And but
boys forget birthdays these days.
And of course the long sentence or short sentence. I think in the book he's like, yeah, I prefer that because I always hate making up long sentences. But those are things that they had all throughout, which are the kind of the edutainment aspects of it. But I always love the cleverness of it and the nonsensical Wonderland-esque way of them doing it logic-wise. Lack of rhyme or reason, so to speak.
So I like the idea of him being harassed by a cop immediately, because it's like if you were suddenly animated, you're definitely at least under the influence, bro. Like you're guilty of something, and we're gonna figure it out.
If you were under the influence of acid, then that would like sober you up real quick. It's like
maybe.
Oh, officer. Sorry, just practicing. Anyways, but moving on. So he continues, and the next character that he meets on this road is the Weatherman. And I'm not talking about the Weatherman. I'm talking about the Weatherman.
Yeah, I like how they did that one. Is it gonna be raining later? I thought you were the weatherman. No, I'm not the weatherman. I'm the weatherman.
Which ever since ever since I've seen the Weatherman, I always joke with Tammy that they're not the Weathermen. They're the weather or not. It's whether or not they know the weather, you know, because sometimes the weather people are inaccurate as fuck, you know.
Oh yeah,
and it's like
especially around here.
It's known to happen once in a while.
It's been known to happen more than once in the
It
West.
happens a lot.
Wasn't that like that?
It's all
Nicolas-
guesswork. I mean,
Wasn't that the
they're-
Nicolas Cage movie?
they're more educated than us, and they're making the best guess. I mean, you feel free to go outside and lick your finger and put it in the wind and see if you can do a better job. But yeah, it's the weathermen aren't always right, and more often than not, they're not exactly right, but they're slightly on the money. You know, they're meteorologists, bro. Like those.
Yeah,
guys,
well, I
or
like
whatever
Yeah.
when they say that we're gonna get a trace of snow, and all of a sudden, yeah, there's 4 feet, dude. And then the next
you
time they say
notice,
we're gonna
though-
get a blizzard, and it ends up being a trace of snow. It's like, really?
Hey, they
I
knew
love-
there was snow
yeah.
coming.
Actually, I am sad that they didn't go with some of the original design, even though I kind of like the look of this one. The fact that the author realized that the person who did the original art, as a joke, basically drew the author as the weatherman, and that was something
That's
as a
pretty
cute
neat.
little, yeah, which is kind of
That's
sad they
cool.
didn't keep it like that. But it was it still was fun to remember that. I still like the character. Really fun character.
So shortly
Weather,
after,
the brother of which?
yeah, which we'll get to that. But before that Milo continues onward, but he starts not to pay attention to where he is going, and ends up in a little known place as the Doldrums, which
I
is
actually
a
like-
place where no one no one does anything, and and nothing is better than something.
He felt right at home there.
I
and
feel like
he
this
just
was probably a good point to get Tammy and Dustin back in this. They haven't said much in a while, so
sure. What did y'all think about the Doldrums section?
I enjoyed it.
I thought it was different. I mean, because like everything just droops and it went slow, and he's like, what did he say? He said something about time, and they all like freaked out.
That's right.
We don't say
This is
that
where-
word here.
This is also a moment where he meets the watchdog known as
Thinking's not
TikTok.
allowed.
Yeah.
I think it's all,
The
yeah.
one,
yeah.
but then the watchdog, that was like,
He told the watchdog that he was killing time, and the dog was like, "You can't kill time."
One of
Right.
2 things I remembered from the book, even way past, is killing time. As the dog reacting to that, like,
I actually like this dog. I'm not a fan of dogs, you guys know, but I actually did like this character. It was neat. The watchdog with the giant alarm clock inside of him.
the original design had the watch on the outside of him, which is kind of weird for me to adjust to again. But
Yeah.
I swear, and again, for those that remember the book, this is one scene I actually thought I liked a little bit better, though Milo was a little bit worse in this section. But I liked how this one was much more sinister. The Doldrums were a hell of a lot more sinister in this one than they were in the book. In this one, they were like, we're going to kill this kid.
There are
Because he's not
parts
even going
in
to
here
breathe
that-
anymore.
Well,
There are parts in this animation that go really dark and darker than the book, I think.
yeah. I mean, it's weird how they're all like scared of the dog at first, and they're running away, and then at the end when he's trying to get him to think, he's like they're like not afraid anymore. Now they're just like they're all after him. And, He has to keep thinking to keep going.
I kind of like the song for that one too. I always
Yeah.
that one's one of the more catchy songs in this. So.
I think I started to like him a little bit when at that scene when he started thinking and saying off things that he learned in school and stuff, and he became a little more likable.
Yeah, I don't remember everything that he started to think about, but
Yeah.
The things he started thinking about definitely sounded more intelligent, and the more intelligent that he sounded, it seemed
the more
to
likable
work.
he was.
Correct, and the more that his car seemed to roll, and so
Yeah.
so Talk, the watchdog, ends up becoming a passenger of his, and becoming this is when it becomes kind of a buddy movie for Talk and Milo, and so they end up going first to Dictionopolis, which evidently words grow on trees. They are in the marketplace, and you can buy them in bags. Was there anything that you enjoyed about Dictionopolis, Dustin?
Yes, my favorite character was in there. I really enjoyed the spelling bee. The spelling bee was one of the funnest characters, in my opinion. I always when I was young, I always liked spelling, and the fact that they actually had a bee being the spelling bee was really was fun, and just like I said, that was definitely. I wish he had come joined them instead of Humbug. I enjoyed the spelling bee better, but that was definitely a great scene between Humbug and the spelling bee, though.
Dustin, I don't know if you got cut off or anything.
Yeah, I been trying to talk for a while. I know I keep forgetting my point because I keep getting cut off.
Just gotta jump in there, bro.
Go ahead.
There's like a loud like domestic fight outside too, which is really distracting.
That don't help. Yeah.
Sorry, man. I'll break it up later.
Yeah. Anyway.
I feel like you said something about that a while back, and it was like a set of people that keep doing that outside of your house or whatever. It's fucked up.
We think they're actually friends of our local alderman, which is why they can't be arrested.
Is that like some Illuminati shit? I don't know what an alderman is. One of those like
city council. Anyway, I thought the Doldrum sequence was actually pretty good. Like I thought the animation was really like creative there, like having them just be like living ooze. Like I liked it. I thought it was pretty well done, and it actually turned pretty insidious pretty quickly. Because it's like, oh, they're gonna like eat him or something. Damn. So I liked that part. So I don't know if I would quite agree with the assessment that it looked dated. I mean, I guess it was like pretty washed out, but I think that was kind of the point of the sequence. You know what I mean?
Well, my thing is, it just.
I agree with that.
I feel like. I like the look of the Doldrum creatures. I just think that their washed out look could have been a little bit better. It looked a little sloppy to me. So I don't know. To me,
I feel like I'm in the camp of that's probably kind of the point, though.
It is, but not like the good kind of sloppy. I think
I get what you're saying. I suppose I kind of half agree because it could have been done better.
Yeah, so, just a little bit.
I'm not saying
I'm
not saying a lot, just a little bit.
I like the way they did it, honestly. I don't know. It felt like it felt right. I mean, when it felt like when they were just kind of being like not doing nothing. You know, they were just kind of. It was kind of good, and then when
Maybe it
they were
was a
trying to
little
get
bit
them,
too slow.
yeah. I don't know. I think they did the job. I think they did it good perfectly. But
Regardless, I do
uh,
like the sequence. I
yeah,
do think that it's an interesting what is it song, and then uh,
yeah, all the songs
what
are
did you
kind of
think
weird.
about what did you think about Dictionopolis, the sequence there, Dustin?
I thought it was like really interesting having the words over like the images. Um, and it just kind of made me think about like how our brains interpret like what we see and translate those into words. It was kind of trippy actually. Like if you, I think somebody said like, you know, this would be a good movie to do on drugs, watch on drugs, and it's like it really made me think, you know, this probably would be really interesting on drugs.
Yes, it probably would be.
We did miss one character as we went because, which is they did it out of order from the book, but that's because they got rid of the Valley of Sound, so it didn't really matter where they put him anyway. Which was the kind of noisy doctor with
yes,
den.
The Doctor of Noise, basically.
Which, by the way, that scene annoyed the heck out of me to no end. And I can perfectly understand with that doctor and den around why in the Valley of Sound in the book, the Keeper of Sound locked up all the sound because that was there, which is sad that they left that out of the movie, but you have to cut something. Just like they cut Talk's backstory. His original name was Talk. His brother's name was Tick.
Yes.
And it's a sad story because Talk's brother, the older brother, was named Tick, but he only goes talk, 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 talk. So they decided, well, obviously the next one's going to go talk, talk, talk. So they named him Talk, but he only goes tick, 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 tick.
Yeah. Which is an interesting backstory. And the way that this doctor dude comes about is kind of like how I think of Professor Marvel in The Wizard of Oz. He's kind of like this cantankerous dude who's kind of a quack. He's kind of a carnival-ish like character who's selling his wares, and the fact that he pours all this shit in one cup, and the kid and he's telling the kid you've got no sound, kid. Let me make you something for you.
You have an absence of noise, not sound. Noise in particular, which is what makes the doctor so irritating because it's all noise, not sound, but noise. And he and the den abhor pleasant sounds. I do find it, but it is important because
I did like
pickpockets him.
I did like his song. I did like his song where he talks about the noise, and then what is that creature that kind of looks like the White Lie? You know, what is he called?
The den, maybe.
Yeah,
the den.
See, I'd never heard of a den before.
Me neither.
So
it's a play on an English saying, which a den meaning a racket or a noise, but you don't really hear that in our.
And it comes out of a bottle like a gin.
Yeah, so they're both.
So.
Yeah, it's because den spelled DIN in that sense, but they respelled it to be like, as Justin said, like a gin. But the important thing in that scene is, of course, Talk stealing the laughter, which is utilized later. Which is why they couldn't leave him out when they left out the sound, Valley of Sound.
Yes. So ultimately, what happens is that Officer Short Shrift ends up showing up because the spelling bee and the humbug have gotten into kind of a flourish on guard moment, and evidently have caused enough chaos to call for an officer of the law, and I guess Milo and Talk are
Blamed.
thrown into the dungeon, in which
600 million years.
in which they meet the witch of the castle, which just so happens to be the sister of the so-called Weatherman.
Be very careful.
So,
There's a witch around here.
so what do we think about her as a character?
She was a great character too. I enjoyed her.
And the sister of the Weatherman, as we've discussed earlier.
She doesn't know if she's still the sister, whether or not she's.
I do like how she says, like, well, can I leave here? It's like, oh, no. The officer doesn't really care if you leave. He only cares about putting you there.
But there also are. I do have to mention these royal five that, or four, should I say? I think it's four, because there are, in the novel, I believe it's tall, a little smaller, and then a little smaller. In here, it's tall, and then just one really small dude.
Oh, that's Chuck Jones. That's Chuck Jones at work right there. There's no doubt.
And he's got the lowest ass voice in here. I get a kick out of that. I think it's the same voice as the Din, to be honest. But in any case, they have told them about a royal dinner, and they're being invited to to a feast with the king of Dictionopolis. What do you think about the king? Anyone?
I think the backstory, and Dustin or Tammy definitely pipe in on that. But the backstory with him, his brother, the math magician, their disagreement, and then banishing rhyme and reason from the land, which is told by the witch, which is brought up there. But yeah. Tammy or Dustin, do you have anything to say on the scene?
The king is just like really pompous and just when they sit down at the table, he tells them to make a speech. Well, he didn't tell them what to make the speech about, so everybody else makes a speech, and what they spoke about, they end up with food. And poor Milo ends up with the words that he said.
We're all eating our words.
I didn't realize I was going to eat my own words.
Right, because he didn't explain it to him, and he just, if it wasn't for that little guy, he'd fall all over the place. That little guy, make sure he falls into the chair, make sure he gets up, make sure he.
That was funny.
Yeah, there are definitely some funny moments in here. And then, of course, we have the moment where Milo suggests that he's going to rescue Rhyme and Reason. And at first the king is hesitant, but in the end, he ultimately says it's a good idea.
Yeah, it was better. It was better when they were around. Now you don't know which one is the father, because I thought they were cousins, but then when you meet them, like, oh, they're sisters. So one's the father and the other one's the uncle.
So Rhyme and Reason were adopted by because the math magician and the what is the name of the king of the alphabet people? But
King Azaz.
Yeah, King Azaz were brothers, and their father, who had always wanted a little girl, ended up adopting Rhyme and Reason as princesses. He was the king of Kingdom of Wisdom, of course. And none of this was in the movie, so it's understandable.
Yeah, that's why I was a little confused.
So Rhyme and Reason, when the king of Wisdom died, they were charged with keeping them. And then, of course, the fact that, of course, Rhyme and Reason got in the middle of one of their fights by saying numbers and words are equal. How dare they? They got
Oh,
banished
dare
to the
they?
castle in the
Banish
sky.
them. And yet both of their songs made the point for them that they were both equally important.
And so he says goodbye to Milo and gives him a bag of his best words to help in his troubles or his journey. And so they are off to Dictionopolis, which I guess is a little bit Tolkien, because they come across a mine of numbers, which evidently. Oh, and I forgot to say that during the feast, the humbug, he ended up accidentally on purpose.
The beast
shooting up in the air.
The beast stung him, so he'd stand up, so he'd volunteer.
Yep. So
and the dog didn't volunteer, but the dog went with anyways.
What did everybody think of the humbug? I thought he was kind of a dick, but an eloquent dick. But
I thought he was a pompous ass.
Yeah,
I like the bee.
He just gets conscripted into this whole thing, and it's like, why are you here?
He's kind of like he's kind of like one of the Alice in Wonderland type characters, you know.
I'm with Crowell. I like the bee.
Yeah, the bee's awesome. The bee, like I said, the bee should have gone with.
Yeah, I think so too. But they had to have somebody different, and I think that's why they sent him, because he was so off the wall and different.
Yeah, and ultimately, he is there for a couple of reasons. I think he was there to scoff at the mine entrance because he realized they couldn't go in, so he was like, okay, let's go back. But that's when we hear. That's when we hear Bugs Bunny's voice in this like octagonal, colorful thing that's way up high, and I forget the mathematical equation that he has to say at this moment. Does anybody know the theory that he's? No. Do you remember, Brandon? This is where my mind is kind of vague.
I don't, and it wasn't in the book either, so I don't remember.
Well, it was some theory of some sort.
Some theory I've never heard of.
So all he says is like math jargon. He's like, well, the Fibonacci sequence is this, and the wall starts to crack, and it's like, that's it. You just have to state math rules.
And the Kobayashi Maru.
And so they end up going into this mine, which the reason why I say Tolkien is because that kind of reminded me of the moment where Gandalf took them into the dwarven mines.
Yeah,
for some reason.
He's like, what's the friend name for friend in Elvish? And that was the answer.
Fly, you fools!
It was actually Frodo that figured it out, not Gandalf, though.
The halfling's leaf has slowed your mind. Stop talking. No, I'm just kidding. I love that part of the movie. I love every part of those movies.
Actually, it's the mathematician was one of the other carryovers of this book.
Hold up. I was just looking at my Lord of the Rings extended cuts the other day and thinking maybe we should all do that soon. So if we get a chance to do it this summer, we should all have like a barbecue where we talk about Lord of the Rings the entire time.
I've never seen the extended version, so I need to see the extended.
Oh, those are excellent. They are a very long day. You start in the morning, you end in the evening. I want to do it with the extended Hobbit cuts. I would start in the afternoon and end in the morning, but yeah. Yeah.
Hey, that's
It is
just,
so fun
you're
to
free
see
to do.
somebody who's never seen those watch those before.
Right? It is the best feeling. I feel like I'd rather do that than turn someone on to horror movies.
Like, try that Popcorn in Bed channel, because that lady like watches those, and she was like, I started watching The Lord of the Rings when I was 12, but the orcs scared me too much and I had to stop. And it's like, this is gonna be good.
Oh, I can't. Ken starts cursing as soon as I put that channel on.
I don't know why Ken hates her so much. It's like, I don't understand.
As far as the math magician, that was one of the scenes that always stuck with me from the movie, even when I was a kid, and from the book, was when they had the humbug trying to stump him by saying, "I'm going to put a big number. That's the biggest number." It's like, well, add one, and then add another one, and then add another one. I just love that.
That was kind of funny, and he was just like blowing his mind. Well, I can't keep going down, never end. Exactly.
It was definitely an interesting sequence, and to be honest, the word choices for his section of singing were fairly similar, at least at first, to
the other one.
King
Yep.
Azaz's,
Yep,
because he
there's
started
plenty
out
of
being
the
that
22.
way, but then it seems like halfway through they decided to get tedious and add some like wordings there. But in all honesty, the Kings are polar opposites in every way, except for in which Milo had figured out.
They agreed to disagree.
Yeah, which was a smart thing for him to trick him into, so that he could actually, be go along with him and his journey. So he ends up giving him this pencil or pen. It's magical, evidently. It can spout any number that he needs, and so he takes his pencil and his bag of tricks and his
Bag of words,
traveling companions, and heads on further. Anyone have anything else to say about that numbers sequence?
I really enjoyed how we tricked him. I just thought it was great. Really shows him he's really thinking now. And figuring out things.
Okay.
How about you, Jake? I haven't heard you speak up in a while.
About what?
Did you have anything to say about any of the scenes that we've talked about so far?
Honestly, no. I've been trying to. I don't have a huge amount to say on this. I'm just kind of. Nothing's really coming to mind at the moment.
Okay.
But I know there was a scene coming
You
up.
need to say something about life or plants or what's going on, buddy? I'm turned about you now.
I'm trying to remember what happens next, because we
have just be quiet a minute.
Isn't the
Jacob,
whole next?
do you need to be held? I'll come do it.
In the demon of insincerity.
Oh,
yes, the demons of insincerity.
That's the one who sounded like it was saying to me, especially when he's yelling down that he caught them and stuff, and then how he's gonna.
Was that little furball?
You're leaving
that faceless. They come across that faceless dude.
Yeah.
You're also missing the orchestra.
The
orchestra was the last thing they did before they started up the mountain of ignorance and started facing the demons. So yeah, that was the scene where the guy was conducting the sunset and told Milo, "Hey, wake me up at 5:22 a.m. for the sunrise." Because he brings all the color and stuff to the world. And it's a very interesting choice. And this is one of the things I disliked about this version of Milo. the Milo in the book does try a little bit, but no one knows the better about it. He realizes it's too much, that he can't do it. This Milo just basically screws the whole thing up and then sneaks off, leaving it all in a mess.
I actually enjoyed that. I thought it was fun. He does feel bad about messing it up. So there's that.
I thought that was pretty believable. It's like, well, can't fix this. Time to leave.
Yeah, it's more kid-like thing to do to mess up and then just like take off. Like, not, most kids would do that. They wouldn't, they might feel bad about it later, but
and he wouldn't have done it without the humbug's insistence.
Yeah,
and you got Tok trying to be the voice of reason, saying, "Milo, I wouldn't do this."
Why'd you tell him to do that?
And nobody should have listened to the humbug.
Yeah, the humbug's just a jackass.
I do have to say that I did like the conundrum that comes up with the faceless dude. I forget what his name is in here, but he tasks Milo with trying to he tasks the humbug with a needle to try to chip away at a rock face.
Well, first he does the sand with the.
Now,
Yeah.
who are you talking about again? That
With-
dude
with
that's
the
like
tweezers.
blue in the suit or whatever.
And the humbug, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
the
got no
faceless guy.
face.
That
Yeah.
But
he looked like he could have been like a ska punk mascot or something for like an
Right.
album. So I really
And-
liked his look, but
And that might have been the punk aspect, might have been part of it. But again, I seriously, I saw that character, and that was one of the few that really made an impression on me. Like you
Yeah.
really did, because I'm like,
it's like that
this
guy in the red suit when you watch Wizards, where you're like,
No, what I was thinking was like, I was like, this strikes me as a character right out of one of Brandon's games. It strikes me as something he would play, and in exactly the same way too.
or an
And
NPC, I'd have you guys
Exactly, yes.
But as one of the few characters that the art design by Chuck Jones almost identically matches the book, which is the original illustrator design, which is really cool. I love this character design. And, with Humbug, he's tasked with taking a pen and creating a tunnel. Milo is tasked with moving a pile of sand, one grain at a time, and tweezers. And Tok is tasked with moving all the water from one well to another with an eyedropper. But this is a reflection. This is one that really hits adults as well, because who hasn't had a job where you're trapped in these meaningless, repetitive tasks?
Right, I was thinking the same thing when I was watching it.
Yeah.
Actually,
The
it's
humbug
like I
loves
said.
it.
Well, it's like I said, over the weekend, I finally got around to starting to watch WandaVision. And there's this part where Vision is asking, what is it we actually do here? And they keep explaining, well, there's all these reports, and he's like, but what are the reports for? It's like,
Yeah.
that definitely reminds me of that sort of thing.
You gotta think that some of these names that they give these characters are like very cool. I mean, you got the terrible Tribune, that comes up here. You got the demons of insanity, if I remember correctly.
Like all of them are based off.
Insincerity. Demon of
Insincerity.
insincerity.
The Demon of Insincerity was one of my favorites too, because like I said, to me he sounded like Yosemite Sam. I mean, it just reminded me of him completely when he's spouting off and yelling and saying what he's going to do to them if they try to escape. And
then you find out he's just this little
Just
ass
tiny little thing. Well, he's still going even after you see him, but then he finally realizes, he's screwed, and then he cries, and he says he's a demon.
And then, of course, they've got all these monsters like coming after them, and it's I think it's Malice, Hate, and two others are like combined to make this monstrosity of a monster.
It is worth noting that Carl is correct in comparing that character to Yosemite Sam, because he is voiced by Mel Blanc, who of course did Yosemite Sam, Bug Bunny, Porky Pig, Sylvester. He did a bunch of the big ones back in
there
the
was
day.
definitely one that sounded like Porky Pig too. So yeah, that definitely that makes sense.
But he voices Demon of Insincerity, the Dodecahedron, and Officer Short Shrift. Yeah.
Oh, which is why I thought of Officer Short Shrift like to somebody.
Yeah. And the terrible Trivium is voiced by Dawes Butler, who also plays the Weatherman and the Census Taker and the Gelatinous Giant. Yeah.
With the Census Taker, was the Census Taker in the movie before they started up the mountain or right before the castle?
It was right before the
castle. It was right
castle.
before the castle.
Okay, so like the book in that. Okay.
And the Gelatinous Giant was like almost like directly after and before the castle too. So, which apparently Milo used his bags of words against the demons of this mountain.
Against the gelatinous.
And against the gelatinous dude.
So Dawes Butler was also a big one. He did Yogi Bear, Huckleberry Hound, Elroy Jetson.
Oh, no kidding.
But I guess he was Hanna-Barbera's big. Yeah.
I just want to comment that it's wild to me that you keep referencing, well, in the book they did this, and it's like I had no idea this was a book because I've literally never heard of this movie.
I actually had
it's a pleasant little read. Definitely.
I actually had the book on vinyl at one point in time as an audio.
It was a big deal for a minute. Apparently, when we were kids, it was definitely something that we read in school. I think I'm right there with Brandon on that. I just can't swear to you that I saw this movie after.
I guess we missed that one in our curriculum, but I know it was it was well known.
It was
in fourth grade.
Part of my curriculum, but I did read the book. So
even though the book is older than I am, they did not have this in when I was school, so it's something they added later.
Which is sad because it's an excellent book to teach.
I
about
definitely
wordplay
think it would have been something I would have enjoyed as a kid, and it definitely would have been. I think that's something that they should have shown us as a kid. So I'm surprised it didn't. I mean,
it really did make learning in a pleasant way. It really did make learning a pleasant thing. I tell you the truth.
I always liked games where we got to play some kind of game to learn. Like bingo or whatever for math or whatever it is. I always enjoyed doing that. That's the time I enjoyed school and learning.
And ultimately, go ahead.
Oh,
you're going to say something.
Nah, never mind. I lost it.
Ultimately, after the gelatinous giant, we have them finally reach the stairs that end up going up to the castle, and where the two sisters are held.
Well, don't forget the Census Taker.
Yeah, the Census Taker.
He had more of a purpose in the book that he was trying to delay them as the monsters were coming after, because they never had the fight scene. Which that is one sad thing, is that I do think the fight scene was kind of cool that they did in the movie. But yeah, come on, who hasn't had to deal with a bunch of red tape paperwork before? I mean, that's just great.
Yeah, it was definitely great. Do this in triplicate, like I ask all, what is this? What is this for? Well, I have to have all this information before I can take the census.
Right. Yeah.
Give me your birthday, where you were born, what year.
How old you were.
Why were you born? I love that one. Like,
I like it. How old are you? How old were you? That kind of.
I also think that it makes much more sense in the movie to have the paperwork be senseless, because he's the census taker. But in the book, there was a purpose to it, because understanding them allowed him to then utilize hallucinations and illusions to keep them distracted. So basically, he understood them, so he was able to grab hold of their senses, you see, and play on words again. And they even said it the right way, I think, in the movie. But yeah, the senses, SENSES. It was just again another clever little thing about using it to distract while the other monsters are, because he's just another demon like the others.
The whole book was a play on words. Definitely.
I do like how they got rid of him though. They pulled out the thing of laughter and made him laugh.
Right.
Well, yeah, that was
because obviously he had no sense of humor. Yes.
Right.
Which is why they had to.
He goes, "What is this? What is this?" Like he didn't even know what laughter was.
Yeah.
Which is why they had to have that noise guy in there.
Yeah. Which actually I don't recall if you guys really
said his
pointed.
name.
Yeah, he had a fun name. Cacophonous A Discord. And another thing I was just noticing going through the list here, you guys talked about King Azaz and the Math Magician, but I didn't catch if you said that they're actually both voiced by the same actor, Hans Conried.
Who that's kind of who it was also the voice of Captain Hook in Peter Pan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's had some notable ones over the years.
And he was in the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T, which is why I think why I was reminded of that movie.
I'm sorry, I just love that title.
Oh, it's great.
I don't know Dr. T, I only know Mr. T.
And he was in something called The Twonky. I have no idea what that is, but it's interesting.
The Twonky.
Twonky. Well, of course, you say Captain Hook, but of course that meant he also voiced Mr. Darling, because that's a weird tradition that they have with that particular one.
I haven't seen a ship like that since I was a boy.
Right. He's had a lot of fun stuff over the years. But anyway.
But in any case, something happens to Talk where he has stopped ticking or something like that. So so Humbug stays back with him while he goes up the stairs, and he basically has a talk with a rhyme and reason, and he's trying to explain to them how he fucked everything up and everything, and they're like, it's no bother, we can fix it, But I do like the colors and the colorful designs of the sisters. I know we're not really supposed to know what they entirely look like, but they sound really pretty behind those voices.
Yeah, they have melodic voices.
Yeah, well, they do draw them in the books.
but it is kind of interesting to know that one of them, in fact, voices his friend Ralph on the phone.
Maybe they should actually take a stop in Wonderland. I think Wonderland could have used some rhyme and reason.
Well,
yeah, like I said, this movie definitely reminded me a little bit of Alice in Wonderland type thing. Especially the Humbug character definitely seemed like he'd belong in Wonderland.
He would have been like the caterpillar or something like that.
That's what I was thinking.
Now you mentioned that one, of course, is June Foray, and she also has a long history of various voice credits, but also a handful of other big ones too. So that's kind of fun. They had some pretty solid voice cast here.
Oh yeah,
for the most part, yeah.
So what do we think about the ending here, where the sisters just kind of fly through the air, and he and
Fixes the
Milo,
sky.
Milo basically, the Weatherman comes
Yep.
in.
And hands them how and
How and why?
oh yeah, how was it why?
How and here?
How and
How,
here.
yeah.
Here's how.
Yeah. Yeah, his how. That's right. So that's how.
Well, one thing I wanted to say
he wanted
about
to get able to get down because there was no stairs.
one thing I wanted to say about when he met the sisters and he was telling them about all the mistakes, how they said that that's okay. That's how you learn is by making mistakes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
Another teachable moment.
Something they
The more
learned
you
from their
know.
father, adoptive father, the king of wisdom.
So they fly and fix the sky, and I guess he ends up back coming through the toll booth, and that's when he realizes that his friend Ralph is still on the phone, and he's like, "It's only been 5 minutes. Well, this is where I've been. Wait, what's happening to you, Ralph? Ralph?"
Yeah. You also forgot, we didn't mention that they said that they're the ones that sent the Tollbooth to him and to help save them because they needed someone who was bored enough to go on and to adventure, and someone who was also kind and intelligent and all this other stuff about him. So that was pretty neat too, saying that they were basically the ones behind everything,
Mm-hmm. And I guess Ralph gets a box in his house, and I guess that's where his adventure begins.
Yeah,
What's in the box?
And much like
you're gonna have a great adventure, So.
Much like Charlie, then unfortunately Milo, the effects of the serum and operation reverse on him, and he goes to play in the playground. No. I do find it interesting that they kind of sneak in that sort of like, you need to play outside, go outside more, play with kids, that sort of message in there. Whereas in the book,
kids
it was more
these
like,
days need to see stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's more like in the book it was just more of like, I've got books to read, I've got places to go, I've got things to do, I've got no time. I'd love to travel again, but I just simply have no time. I have so much to do.
Basically. So at this moment, I think that's where we should talk about the production of the film. What did we think about the production?
Stuff was it was good. I mean, for its time, and it was definitely was a little bit dated, but yeah, it was pretty decent animation. It was fun. Nothing really stands out as bad to me. There was a lot of good in it. I enjoyed it, like I said. So I thought the production was well done.
Can't go wrong with Chuck Jones.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, I don't really know his work, but I enjoyed this one. So.
Alrighty. So let's. Is anyone else wants to talk about production?
Oh, come on! Somebody talk about the whole toll booth and the scene. Come on.
I think the animation was solid. The use of, I guess, I guess there wasn't so much effects as there were like creative editing and whatever. And I thought, it was about what you would expect for the time. I will say those scenes where they were creating the car and disassembling the car, where it's spinning round and round and round and round. I'm sitting there going, that kid's going to be dizzy as hell. But yeah, overall production was pretty good.
I did think it was a little what was that? Little hokey, I guess would be the word I would use. When the toll booth like assembles itself, because it's like ping, ping, and it's like, okay, we can tell you're just cutting and like recutting. Like it's not I'm not sold here.
Right.
Okay. I guess Brandon, did you have anything to say on the production?
Oh no, I just like that. I mean, we've already mentioned probably one of the biggest things that they did here was right at the beginning when they were doing the back and forth with the animated versus the not and little stop motion sections. But that's the reason why I was wanting to make sure Jacob spoke, because I know one of the things we're doing with the Versus Awards is we're talking about production value, and we've created an award specifically for production design and animation. So I wanted to give you a chance to make that shine in your comments.
How's that so?
Shall we talk about the music? What did you all think about the music transitions in here? The songs that were for each of the characters and the different scenes.
I did not care for the first song. It was just, I don't know, it's kind of annoying.
Very late 60s, early 70s.
But I like that music during that time.
Yes, very much.
This music. The rest of the music in the movies kind of pretty much went with the story, and they were all weird. They were weird songs, but they kind of went with them. They were kind of interesting. Not something I'd probably listen to without watching the movie, but yeah, they were interesting.
What about you, Dustin? It looked like you were about to chime in. Oh, I guess not. But let's go into favorite scenes. Let's start with you, Brandon. Was there a favorite scene and a favorite character involved that you thought was?
Well, my favorite scene, I know people were talking about it being dated on animation, though I disagree, is the Doldrum Scene. It's one of the few songs that didn't feel so dated to me that I didn't like it or was kind of like overlooking it. It was also still catchy. I can still hum the tune now, and I do like how dark they made the scene as compared to the book. It just was very interesting, and even the design of the doldrums themselves, having them being kind of like that fluid, like mucusy. I like that whole scene. I thought that was really well done.
Okay. What about you, Jake? If you could pick a favorite scene and a favorite character.
Well, I'm not 100% sure that there's any one character that jumps off the page for me as a favorite. I suppose, you're supposed to root for Milo, I guess. But the one that probably was the most memorable for me And then again, this comes back to what is almost definitely my favorite scene or sequence, is the part with the terrible trivium where he is assigning them those stupid ass tasks like the moving the pile of sand and that sort of thing. And so I just found that quite amusing in the way it was done and the way it was presented.
Okay. What about you, Kroll? Is there a favorite scene or favorite character?
Well, I already mentioned my favorite character, the spelling bee, and I really like the demon of insincerity as well. But scenes, I don't know. There was a lot of decent scenes. I really liked in the beginning with the car being made. Underneath him and around him. I thought that was really neat. And as I already mentioned, when he goes from animated to regular and back and forth. But other than that, probably that drum scene as well. Probably one of my favorites because it was just they were just kind of lulling them into complacency so they could basically eat him or whatever, or kill him, I don't know, the whole thing was very sinister and very enjoyable. A little bit different than the rest of the film. Even the demons weren't that bad, so it was definitely it was a little fun scary part into in the film that wasn't too scary. It wasn't really scary, but just on the edge there. That was enjoyable. I'd probably have to say that.
Okay. Heading over to you, Tammy. Favorite character and favorite scene, if you could choose one.
Well, I actually have two favorite characters. I really liked Tak, and the bee, the spelling bee. I like the fight scene with the bee.
Yep.
And
Humbug.
And Humbug, yes, that was his name. I thought it was Humbug, but I wasn't sure. But I thought that was just funny because the bee goes, madam, and
Yeah.
But I like Tak too because he was so much trying to look out for Milo and and be there for him, and
He was like Jiminy Cricket.
yeah, kind of. So that's all.
Okay. What about you, Dustin? If you could choose a favorite scene or a favorite character, what would you choose?
I liked the demon fusion battle. That was pretty cool.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to pick one. There's a lot of things to enjoy in this that were just like really clever or creative. So I kind of have a hard time like deciding on one thing, to be honest.
Okay.
Like, sometimes like the word games were a little annoying. Like the thing with like the king, it's like, well, yes, you have to eat your words, and it's like, of course. But I still appreciated like how like, and it's like, well, that's clever. Okay, fine. So there was a lot to appreciate, even if it was somewhat tedious at times.
Okay. As far as favorite scenes, it's hard to. You're right, Dustin. It's hard to like pin one down because there are so many like little scenes that are so enjoyable in this pretentious and yet educational film. But I do enjoy the Doldrum Scene because to me, ever since I saw this as a kid, it's like it's like you remember certain things from this film going forward. And one thing I remembering from the book is don't jump to conclusions, because I think there is a city called Conclusions in the book, if I remember correctly.
Expectations. I want to say. Actually, no. It was Conclusions, because jumping to conclusions, there's an island, and they end up jumping to conclusions, so they end up on the island because they accidentally end up jumping through it and have to swim through the sea of knowledge in order to return, which is why most people don't do it, because most people can swim through the sea of knowledge and always emerge dry.
That is one thing that I remember from the book. And it's surprising how much I remember from the book. Like, I just didn't remember, like, the things that some of the things that you brought up, Brandon, which I'm glad that you just recently reread.
I was gonna say, I just finished reading it today, rereading it. So yeah,
I'm surprised you didn't mention the jumping to conclusions part. To be honest, because I remembered it.
Oh, I spoke too much already, so I was like, I'm going to not this time.
Give somebody else a chance.
It was just definitely a memorable book, to be honest. But that being said, I like the Doldrums. I love Talk as a character. Talk is like my favorite. If I had to choose, I felt bad for the Bumblebee, but he wasn't exactly my favorite. Besides Talk, I think my favorite besides Talk was, in fact, the Demon of Insincerity, and I actually did enjoy the Terrible Trivium. Even to this day, I think that Terrible Trivium just sounds terrifying, you know.
It is a cool name.
And if I were told to take a tweezers and take the sand and put it here, I'd tell them what for, you know, instead of just going with the flow of things like they did.
It actually reminded me. It reminded me of a joke that we had for a while going on at work, where there was like this Santa Claus that you could record stuff on, you know, and you push the button and it would play back the recording.
Okay, kind of like Ruxpin.
Yeah, sort of. But like one of my coworkers was kind of ribbing another one. And this was, first of all, someone who smokes heavily. So keep that in mind. And had kind of a reputation, which was not undeserved, for having people move things again and again and again and again. And they were like, hey, I want you to move this statue from here to here. And then they were like, that was the recording. And it was like, when he did that thing, I want you to move that pile from here to here using these tweezers. I'm like, that sounds familiar.
Well, I mean, most of y'all have been in the world of work. Who hasn't done work that is trivial?
Busy work, yes.
Hence the name, the Terrible Trivium. Yeah. Trivial. One thing I had forgotten to say, and I think is important, is that the author actually just passed away a year ago in March. And it's just kind
very recently.
Yeah, he was in his 90s.
91, I believe. Yeah.
At least he lived to a relatively ripe age.
He got to see the mess that was 2020.
But in any case, I think we are now at our journey's end. So Hopefully you enjoyed our discussion, ladies and gentlemen. It was a treat, and hopefully it was a nice ending for my month. So let us
Happy
go
ending.
into outros. So, Dustin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I collect horror movie stuff. I have a YouTube channel, The Crypt of Horrors, and I show off the things I find. Pretty much whenever I'm able to shoot a video, which working on getting some new stuff out there pretty soon. You can also find me on Twitter at DerCryptaxis, DER Cryptaxis. Yeah, and also on Instagram as The Crypt of Horrors. So follow me and make me do stuff.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Tammy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I enjoy going on this discussion and the other one that you have, and I enjoy collecting my own movies and music and having these discussions and, checking out movies that I haven't seen before. And in the summer, I have fun with my car.
What's the car?
1972 Grand Prix.
Heading over to you, Kroll. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm disabled, so I'm not able to work, but I love watching TV and movies. I enjoy reading and playing video games, and I love coming on the podcast, talking about movies and watched. So it's fun, and I enjoy coming on the other podcast with you and Tammy, and sometimes Mo when he finds the time. Yeah, so that's basically me.
Alrighty. What about you, Jake? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Oh, my name's Jake. I am a movie and television and anime fan and collector here in Central Virginia. I am the co-host of SeptumSin versus the World on YouTube, and also a very, very busy schedule right now, trying to juggle a full-time job and being the co-founder of RVA Homegrown Natives, which is a native plant nursery. We had our first market of the season last Saturday and did pretty good. And I am excited to see what comes the rest of the season with Maymont's Herbs Galore. Anyone in the Richmond area knows Maymont Gardens or Maymont as an institution, but the Herbs Galore is one of the big events of the year for plant geeks. So that's going to be a lot of fun to be part of that. And I'd still try to find time to watch at least the stuff that we discuss on this channel and also Delusions of Grandeur. I like joining you fine folks for your discussions. And we also have stuff on our channel. We just did a discussion this week on the anime Konosuba, God's Blessing on This Wonderful World, which was a fun show. I enjoyed that. And next month we'll be doing one that is a long time overdue. Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei. So looking forward to that.
Heading over to you, Brandon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
SeptumSin, SeptumSin versus the World. I like to talk movies on the channel, physical media especially. We talk about movies, DVD, Blu-ray pickups, and of course we do other various discussions like the Konosuba one. We're going to be taking a little bit of a May-ish hiatus. We'll still have some content. I'm going to be dropping back more into the reviews. I've been doing a new review series called Film Psychoanalysis. And it is a kind of a deeper dive into films. And there are other channels that do that, but I try to do it with films that don't quite have that wide release, or things like, for instance, I did Dark Days of Demetrius. The Dakota Ray film was my first one, and I have recently been breaking down the Craiglon Incident trilogy. The second film, I just released that one today, and I was surprised at how much I did get as far as positive light I've gotten in the series so far, because I am very honest in my feelings about it, whether they're negative or positive. So it's worthwhile, especially if you want to look at some stuff, learn a little bit more, or have a deep dive into something that you normally wouldn't see covered in that level of depth. So check that out on the channel, and I guess I'll check y'all out in a few minutes as we talk about next month's stuff.
Alrighty. And my name is David Strege. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this marvelous film journey. We've talked about a heck of a lot over these 5 years. And one of the reasons why we've been having you tune into some of our favorite, films that we haven't covered that mean something to us. And hopefully this one wasn't that bad. So, but I also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where we also podcast on under that channel. But I do video pickups and video reviews of my own. If you'd like to check them out, please do. Like, share, and subscribe. Hopefully we'll see you back with us on Delusions of Grandeur this Sunday, as you should drop your drawers, ladies, grab your condiments. We are going to have one heck of a sausage party as we discuss that movie this coming Sunday.
Oh boy.
Hi, Pix, thank you.
Going back over to you, Brandon.
All right. Well,
next month.
Yeah, this is we actually have Kroll up next month as our big presenter, which is really awesome. And he's got a long month for us, which is going to be rather cool. So we have a whole bunch of pretty interesting things in store, and I'm just gonna tell you all about them, and then I guess he'll take over the next of after we are done with this part. So the late in the month, as I can take control of my there we go. We've got the Wolfman, so it's going to be a double feature. This is the newer released Wolfman with Anthony Hopkins, and of course Waterboy. That's the last of the month twofer.
Yeah, that's gonna be Die Laughing. That's the theme.
Then, of course, we have Rock of Ages. I think this is the right one, isn't it, Kroll?
Rock of Ages, yeah.
And then, of course, a classic comedy, See No Evil, Hear No Evil, which it was a great pairing. Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder, they're great together. Then, of course, Braveheart. And then a pairing of Liar Liar and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind for next week. So I guess our next week is going to be a Jim Carrey centric.
Yep.
So we got a lot to cover, but we'll definitely be moving. And of course, let's not forget that our 5th anniversary is coming up in June. So we'll hopefully, if any of you people who've been on the channel before want to join us for some of those, it's going to be fun.
Definitely. So hopefully you've enjoyed our discussion. Like, share, and subscribe. And hopefully we'll be hearing the phone call soon of all the toll booths dropping just in the middle of your house. And we'll hear the adventures that you've been on. So thank you, and have a good evening, morning, or afternoon, wherever you are. Say good night, everyone.
Good night, John Boy.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.